Hello and welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records in alphabetical order like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. Although at the moment we're only alphabetical about once a month, because in addition to our adventures through the Beatles Revolver, we also have a once a month mini-series, first Friday of the month, called the Rumours Mill, as we work our way through Fleetwood Mac's Rumours. But not in the original order of the track listing, because without sounding like I have a massive ego, I did think there was room for improvement. So last time we looked at second-hand news. Today, we're going to be listening to this. Today's song, my personal track too, is Go Your Own Way. This song was Fleetwood Mac's very first top 10 hit. The other day I was tidying my record collection and I totally coincidentally stumbled upon this Rolling Stone special edition on Fleetwood Mac. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read an excerpt from an issue of Rolling Stone published on January 9th, 1978, at which point Rumours was still pretty fresh. Rumours, the album that topped the charts for 6 months, has sold almost 8 million copies and still sells over 200,000 copies weekly. Released in February, Rumours sold enough at its peak to go gold twice a month, platinum every 30 days. Rolling Stone later, somewhere around 2010, went on to rank this song as their 120th out of their 500 greatest songs of all time. It's sort of a myopic list, but for the purposes of this episode, this song is highly regarded. Partly because it's so highly regarded, I actually think that it's due a redemption. Because if you hear it every time you go to the supermarket or the pharmacy, in the waiting room at the doctor's or what have you, the song will quickly lose its shine. I think that that's a bit of a travesty because it is a really great piece of music. So what we're going to do today is we're going to decouple the art from the artist so that we can break down exactly why it's such a great piece of music. And then we're going to put it back in the context in which it was written, namely an unceremonious uncoupling. And then after that, and hopefully this isn't too heartless, I'd like to think enough water has passed under the bridge for this to be appropriate and not extremely callous.
We got over each other. It took a long time, but it did happen.
I'm going to implement a ranking system and we're going to figure out who won the breakup between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. They have given us ample evidence with which to make our decision, so we can get into the nitty-gritty and really work out who deserves the trophy of breakup winner, because that's exactly how relationships work. But first, why have I decided that this is the song that needs to be track 2 on the album? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you'll remember from last time, I chose Secondhand News as the opener because it was bubbly, it was high energy. It was a pleasant, satisfying welcome to the album. And really that opening track is the selling point for the album. This song, while being very strong, is a little bit bitter, a little bit angry, very fiery. I don't think that that's how you want to open an album, personally. However, I think that it's the ideal track too, because you've been sucked in by the first track, and now that they've won your trust, bam, they can hit you with something a little bit more challenging, while still demonstrating that you should still be listening to the album because it's a great piece of work. The original has Dreams as the second track, and I feel like that, while also a very strong song, brings that high energy down a little bit too much, coming straight off the back of Secondhand News. It's too much of a vibe change. This one, I think, is just enough of a vibe change. Let's get into it. I want to really dig deep into what's great about the music on this one. I think it's important to mention up top that Lindsey Buckingham, who looks like this, a strapping young lad with a head full of curly hair. I am biased on that front. This man, Lindsey Buckingham, seems to me to be one of those artists who has a singular creative vision. He knows exactly what he wants the song to sound like in the end, and he is uncompromising in his pursuit of that sound, even if he has to butt some heads with people along the way.
Lindsey knew what the hell he was doing, and he knew why he wanted to do it, and he saw that point that he wanted to get to.
Perhaps not the most admirable quality in a person, but a highly successful model as a musician, I would argue. Although, as I mentioned in the last episode, I do think you can be creatively brilliant without being a giant pain in everyone's ass, but that's a story for another day. All of this to say that basically he had a hand in every single decision that was made about the arrangement of the song and what all of the different instruments are doing. So let's look at some of those decisions to work out why they come together and create, according to Rolling Stone, and probably according to me as well, one of the best songs in rock music, certainly of the 70s. So here's a laundry list of Lindsey Buckingham's good choices on the track Go Your Own Way. First off, the man was a little bit of a mockingbird. He was clearly listening to a lot of the music of his contemporaries, and he would pick up little things that he liked the sound of that he could then work into his own music. And one of those examples is the drum part on this track. He had been listening to Street Fighting Man by the Rolling Stones. Editor Nancy here. Rolling Stone only ranked this song at number 295 out of its top 500. And he thought that drum part is great and would work really well in something of mine. For reference, this is what the song sounds like. We'll just highlight the drum part, which sounds like this. So Lindsey Buckingham moseys over to Mick Fleetwood, the drummer, and he says, I want you to do this on this track. The thing is that Mick Fleetwood wasn't able to get it down exactly, so he made it his own. So you end up with this like, boom, ba ba ba, boom, ba ba ba. I hope you're having as much fun as I am with this. That part is iconic, clearly recognizable. It's one of those great drum parts in rock music. So the choice itself was fundamentally Lindsey Buckingham's, and it was sort of a result of, I'm not going to say incompetence on Mick Fleetwood's part, but technical difficulties on Mick Fleetwood's part that turned it into this really brilliant drum part. And actually, he elaborated on that point to Jeff Porcaro, who is, in my view, one of the greatest drummers in rock music. He's responsible for this jam right here. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the tale, but the Storytime correspondent can do a much better job. Storytime correspondent, spin us a tale. Hello Vinyl Friday family, I have some stories for you today. This is the first one. So Mick Fleetwood lays down the drum track, they finish the album, they go on tour, and Boz Scaggs is opening for them. Playing drums for Boz Scaggs is Jeff Porcaro. And Jeff is really digging these performances from Mick Fleetwood, specifically on Go Your Own Way. After a gig one night, he approaches Mick, and it's just like, what are you doing? How are you doing that? He says, I've watched it, I've tried to understand it, nothing you do up there makes sense, but it sounds beautiful. What's your method? I can't figure it out. I've been watching every night. On that last beat, is the snare ahead or behind? And Fleetwood literally says, I'm dyslexic, so I can't really tell what I'm doing with my drumming. And Jeff Porcaro thinks that it's a joke, but Mick Fleetwood's like, no, seriously, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just playing by feel. If it sounds good, I do it. It was only after we continued to talk that Jeff realized I wasn't kidding around. We eventually had a tremendous laugh about it. Mick Fleetwood, in his words, capitalizing on his own ineptness. Let's move on to the bass. Lindsey Buckingham and bassist John McVie weren't really getting along at this point in time, and part of it, I would assume, is because Lindsey was coming in and saying, I hear that you're the bassist, but I'm going to tell you how to do your job. Here we go.
You know, I came in certainly as the new kid on the block, but I also came in as the kid who had some ideas. John and I used to butt heads quite a bit in those days.
When Lindsey pitched the song to the band, and they were trying out different things, John McVie brought to the table a bass line that was kind of like plodding. Lindsey said it was a little bit too busy, it sounded a little bit too country. And based on that description, this is what I think it would have sounded like. Bass correspondent, please. Instead, Lindsey told John that what he wanted was just a dung 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 dung. As a bassist, that's really boring. But it was exactly the right choice for the song, and we'll come back to why that's the case very shortly. It is worth mentioning, though, that John McVie was given free rein at the chorus, and once again, I think that this bass part is iconic right here. That's so good. So credit where credit is due there. That is a masterfully melodic bass line. I cover this song in 2 different bands, and this is one of my favorite moments, playing that stunning bass line. Part of what I think that this bass line does well is it picks up the catchiest part of the chorus, which is its syncopation. If the downbeat is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, the melody's going, you can go your own way. It never lands on that downbeat. It's all in the offbeats. The bass line does a similar thing. If your downbeat is 1, 2, 3, 4, the bass is going 1, 2, da 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 da, and it's coming in on those offbeats. It's highlighting those points of the melody. Strengthens what's already strong. I think that Mick Fleetwood summarizes it best when he says,
You're a monster, John.
I think that it's time that we talked about the guitars. This song has a fairly unique guitar tone, and the reason for that is that Lindsey Buckingham tailored a specific blend. He recorded a guitar part that was quite sort of distorted and blunt and didn't sustain very well, and then he layered on top of that a guitar part that was clear, almost tinny really, and he smushed them together so that they sounded like they were coming from the same guitar. That's not a specific tone that you can get out of a single effects pedal or, distortion alone. It's multiple guitar parts coming together, so that sort of chung 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 sounds that way because it's many guitars together. That's not the only guitar in the intro, there's also an acoustic guitar part. And this seems like a good point to address the fact that the timing of the song in the introduction is a little bit strange. We're all used to it now because we know the song really well. As I mentioned up top, it's a ubiquitous song. But let's imagine you've never heard the song before and listen to this introduction. Firstly, everyone comes in staggered. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, everyone in. It goes electric guitar first, then acoustic, and immediately after bass, then vocals, then drums. Given all of that, it may actually be quite difficult to pick the downbeat. I'll show you what I mean. Electric guitar. Acoustic bass, vocals, drums, and then on that cymbal there's our downbeat.
Editor Nancy here, coming to you first thing in the morning. One thing that I forgot to mention is that the cadence of the vocals is also really strange. He puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable, so loving you isn't the right thing to do. Whereas if we were speaking, we'd say loving you isn't the. It sort of adds to that off-kilter feel.
Now, because I knew the song so well, it actually hadn't occurred to me that it would have been difficult to find the downbeat. But their producer, whose surname I'm not really sure how to pronounce, but I'm gonna try, Ken Kayat. Kayat? Well, there's 3 attempts, and I don't think any of them was right. Said of the first time he heard it, Lindsey was beating his acoustic guitar as hard as he could and screaming his lungs out. The first time I heard it, I thought, what the heck is going on? It sounded so unmusical. I don't know if anything would come from it. Similarly, the first time that Lindsey Buckingham heard this song on the radio, he was in his car, he was driving somewhere, the DJ announced that it was the new Fleetwood Mac single.
KFWB time on the B. Mitchell Reed Show, 4 after the hour of 6, KFWB temp.
Played the song and then said, yeah, I don't know about that one. And so Lindsey, with his oversized ego, calls up the radio station to have a chat with the DJ and find out what the hell he was talking about and why he didn't like this song.
I said, hey, B, this is Lindsey Buckingham here. Oh, hi, Lindsey. You just played my song, Go Your Own Way, and you said you weren't sure about it. What didn't you like about it? He's saying, well, I couldn't find the beat.
So there you go. Apparently, if you're completely fresh to the song, the downbeat can be difficult to locate. The reason I'm telling you all of this is that the acoustic guitar does nothing to help matters because it comes in completely on an offbeat. Here we go. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it comes in just like a half beat before the beat. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, da 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 da. And that can be very disorienting. If you're looking for your down and that comes in and it comes in so strong, I can see how that would be kind of confusing. However, the reason that Lindsey Buckingham decided to put it there is that without it, there's almost like dead air in the song. It sounded like this without the acoustic guitar.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
With the acoustic guitar, you get a sort of call and response. Da da da, loving you, da da da, isn't the right. It counterbalances that big empty space in the vocal. Okay, we're gonna do this old trick. This one's the acoustic guitar. This one's the vocal. I'll show you how they sort of play off each other.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do.
That was an exercise in coordination that I think I failed, but hopefully I gave you enough of an idea of what's going on. So I think that counterbalance is exactly what the song needed. I think it's an excellent choice. And although it may have been confusing to people in the beginning, I guess everyone figured it out because the song, as we know, did pretty well. Alright, the next thing to point out is the organ. What? There's organ in this song? Yes, there is. It's here. It's like this roaring wah! I bet that was beautiful to listen to. Yeah, Christine McVie wanted to come in and do something really sort of ornate on the piano, and Lindsey countered that and said, actually I want you to do essentially nothing but hold down the chord, and I want it on Hammond organ. And it kind of screams, almost like in sympathy with a heartbroken Lindsey Buckingham. It's exactly, again, what the song needed. It's simple, but it's really aggressive. And the thing is, it happens at the point in the song where all the backing vocals are coming in strong, and Lindsey Buckingham is, as the producer said, screaming his lungs out. Also, John McVie has opened up and is doing this beautiful melodic bass line. There's no room for an intricate piano part to be competing for space. Another excellent choice. He's got restraint where restraint is needed. He's got busyness where busyness is needed. He's playing with lots of different textures in the instruments. It's immaculately arranged. And speaking of harmonies, let's get into it. I'm of the opinion that backing vocals are the secret sauce of Fleetwood Mac. My theory as to why this might be the case is that all three of the vocals, Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, Christine McVie, occupy approximately the same range, but they're tonally very, very different, which means that when they're singing within a similar range, those different tones are blending beautifully. Again, there's something kind of magical about vocals that can come together and create this sort of beautiful glue. If you listen closely, you can hear the individual voices.
You can go your own way. You can call it another lonely day.
But really, it just sounds like its own unique block of sound.
You can go your own way. Go your own way.
Not everyone can achieve that. Not all voices blend. But they sure as hell did in this combination. As I was perusing this old Rolling Stone, I found this choice quote, and it was kind of heartbreaking. So this is from an article that came out on the 24th of March, 1977. They're speaking specifically about the band's first album with Buckingham and Nicks involved. The newest members of the band were happy with the album, but Nicks went through an anxious period of self-doubt. She can quote entire passages from a review in Rolling Stone, the very same, that she says almost caused her to quit. They said my singing was callow, and that really hurt my feelings. She began to think that maybe she wasn't that good, and that she had been asked into the band only because she was with Buckingham. Quote, time after time I would read, the raucous voice of Stevie Nicks and the golden-throated voice of Christine McVie, who's the only saving grace of the band. Are you kidding me? Stevie Nicks has a fantastic voice. She's a big part of the reason that they were so successful when Buckingham and Nicks joined. Imagine if she had quit because this bloody publication had said that She wasn't as good a singer as Christine McVie. She wasn't as golden-throated as Christine McVie. Come on! Ugh. Rolling Stone has made some terrible calls in the past, and that is surely one of them. Which brings me to the lead vocal. As that producer said, Lindsay was screaming his lungs out. Spoiler alert, I don't think that Lindsey Buckingham is as strong a lyricist as Stevie Nicks. I think he's a little bit on the nose. There's not much nuance to his lyrics. It's not always the most interesting to listen to. However, he compensates for that with fire and passion in his vocal performance. This, I think, might be his best. A big part of the strength of this song is not only that it has a lovely melody and a great arrangement, it's that he unleashes his hurt and his fury in his lead vocal part at the chorus. The first time I listened to his voice isolated on this, I got chills. And now you get to have chills too. Here it is.
You can go your own way. Go your own way. You can call it another lonely day.
I believe that he said it was cathartic to sing that.
It was a way of exercising certain hurts.
I can totally understand that. This is one of the first songs that was written for the album, so it was still pretty fresh at that point. In the last episode, a couple of people mentioned that what they didn't like about Fleetwood Mac is that the music was a little bit too pristine, a little bit too flat, not authentic enough, not raw enough, especially given the really fraught content of the album, that it was a little bit too tidy. While I can definitely understand that argument, I'd like to submit this as evidence. You can't listen to that and tell me that it's not coming from the heart. But having said that, I do really appreciate the comments. I love when you all argue with me. So long as you're not calling names, that's not as charming. For the most part, you're engaging in good faith discussion. So please keep that up. In that 1978 article, they said Mick Fleetwood speaks of maintaining taste and integrity with a passion that seems fresh because everyone else seems to have left theirs in the 60s. So at the time, the music press at least was representing that they were some of the more authentic musicians putting out music at that point in time. What are your thoughts? Can you see Fleetwood Mac as like a gritty band, or is it just too poppy for you? Let me know in the comments. I always read them. The last thing I'd like to mention about this vocal is the imperfection in the pitch. Especially on that one, he overshoots the note. And generally speaking, his pitching is great, but occasionally the note gets away from him. I think that is a magical part of the song, without sounding too much like Rick Beato, with all due respect, Rick Beato. I think that's something that's been lost to our ability to tune vocals digitally. Sometimes you have to sacrifice the accuracy of the note for the sake of the passion of the delivery. And this is a song that does that so beautifully. As somebody who loves a good set of chords, this song has very simple chords. There are only 3 in the verse, and I think 3 again at the chorus, and there are no sort of fancy jazzy major 7ths, minor 13ths, but there is so much that is given in the vocal delivery. There is so much magic in the blend of the harmonies. The arrangement is immaculate. Each choice is deliberate, it's intentional, and I think it's correct. And it's got that earwormy melody. So musically, I give this song an A+. So let's put this music now back in its rightful context, because it is worth assessing on its own, but at its core, this album reflects a very specific set of circumstances, and part of the joy in listening to it is the sort of dramatic irony in that you know exactly what's happening, and because we're in the future, we have the privilege of knowing what comes after this.
If you look at the success that Rumours enjoyed, I think that it goes a little bit beyond the music itself. A tangible element of that is the fact that you had these dialogues shooting back and forth between members of the band about things that were happening to all of us while we were recording these songs.
It's part of the appeal. So I think maybe the best person to regale us with the tale of how this song came to be would be, obviously, the Storytime correspondent. So Fleetwood Mac's on tour, they have a record that they have to make, so they've set aside some time, they're gonna stop, they're gonna write some music, they're gonna get together in the studio and lay down some tracks. And when they were all deciding where they were going to stay and organizing their accommodation, Lindsey Buckingham was of the opinion that he and Stevie were going to be moving in together, because things had been rocky, they were a bit on again, off again, but he figured that they would still be moving in together. She told him that they weren't, and that she was finding her own place, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin for the relationship. So he was in a mightily hurt mood and sat down and banged out this song. That's all it took. When Lindsey Buckingham played this song for the band, Stevie Nicks took particular exception to this line. Packing up, shacking up's all you want to do. Poor betrayed Stevie Nicks says. I very much resented him telling the world that packing up, shacking up with different men was all I wanted to do. He knew it wasn't true. It was just an angry thing that he said. Every time those words would come on stage, I wanted to go over and kill him. He knew it, so he really pushed my buttons through that. It was like, I'll make you suffer for leaving me. And I did. She begged him to take the line out of the song, and he refused. I suppose, again, in the spirit of that authenticity that we were just discussing. She hated singing that line live. As you can imagine. Imagine your worst breakup. Now imagine having to get up on stage in front of tens of thousands of people and sing your ex's version of your breakup to that audience. No thank you. No thank you at all. And truth be told, I think Lindsey Buckingham could be a bit of a prick. I found this especially damning quote the other day. He said, I was completely devastated when she took off because they'd known each other since they were like 16. And yet I had to make hits for her. No, you did not, sir. She could write her very own hits. Rhiannon was one of their biggest hits. That was her song, pal. I had to do a lot of things for her that I really didn't want to do, and yet I did them. So on one level, I was a complete professional. And rising above that, according to Stevie, it doesn't seem like he was a complete professional in rising above that and getting over it, especially if he's insisting that these really hurtful lines stay in the song. But it's okay. They completely got over it.
We did get over it.
I really love this clip in particular from 1982 of her just being done with it and stalking off stage before the performance was over. I have to say I'm Team Stevie on this one, which means I may have a bit of a bias now that we're getting to the Who Won the Breakup portion of this episode. Here's how it's gonna work. I've decided on 3 different scales that we're gonna use to measure the sort of breakup score. The first is personal growth, and we'll be ranking from petty to mature. Petty is 0, mature is 10. The next is the quality of the songwriting. We're gonna go from weak, 0, to strong, 10. And the last one is passion. Tepid, 0, fiery, 10. I'll give you an example because we didn't do this last time for secondhand news. As a song, it's completely petty. He's singing about his flings, he's complaining about his relationship, he's telling the person he's having a fling with that he's not really interested and he's not going to stick around because he's too hurt, and don't take it personally. So I'm going to give that a 3. 3 out of 10. Songwriting? I give it a 6. It's not their best song, but I do think it's solidly enjoyable. 6. In terms of passion, I'm going to say 4. He doesn't sound entirely committed to the thing the way that he does with this song. So what average does that give us? Well, boss, I think you'll find that that is an average of 4.3 out of 10. Exactly. So for secondhand news, I'm assigning Lindsey Buckingham a score of 4.3 out of 10. Which brings me to Go Your Own Way. Is this song petty? A little bit. The verses show promise. The loving you isn't the right thing to do, how can I ever change things that I feel? There's an element of self-reflection. This isn't working out, it isn't gonna work out, but I'm heartbroken about it, right? I would give you my world, but how can I when you won't take it from me? I'm gonna call that petulant. If we get to the chorus, you can go your own way is basically the musical equivalent of f off. I don't need you. Goodbye. I'm gonna say that's quite petty. I'm gonna give this song a 2 on personal growth. Songwriting? It's not the most perfect song in the world, but it is incredibly skillful pop songwriting. This song's an 8.5 for me. And passion? 10 out of 10, man. This man is screaming his lungs out. He's committed. He means this. He's hurt. It's coming from the gut. It's a fresh wound. 10 out of 10. Let's go to the leaderboard now. What average does that give us? Well, boss, that brings us to an average of 6.8 out of 10. Not too shabby. So there you have it. We haven't come to any Stevie Nicks songs yet. When we do, we'll add her to the leaderboard. When we get to the end, we'll compare our averages and we'll be able to determine Who won the breakup? And before we call it a day, we have to ask the question, will it Beatles? This 1978 Rolling Stone article quotes one Derek Taylor, who speaks at length about the band. At the time that this album came out, on the Warner label, Derek Taylor was the creative services director. This is the same Derek Taylor who was the press director for the Beatles' Apple Corps. Will it Beatles? Yes, it will. Let me know in the comments if you have any other Will It Beatles for this episode. But otherwise, that's it from me. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to support me or this or any of the other weird things that I do, I'll leave a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you are welcome to make a donation, but no pressure, friends. Thank you to everybody who has. I am taken aback by your generosity and I appreciate you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! If that weren't the case, we wouldn't hear it in the supermarket every time we go to buy eggs. Unless you're vegan, in which case you're not buying eggs. The song is still playing though, irrespective of the eggs. Why did you play it like that, Lindsay?